Hello, this is Roland. Today I want to talk about faith, doubt, and emotions. Emotions can block you from true faith and true belief. Let me put it as simply as I can. When a person is close to their conscience, to their inner ground of good, when they know in their heart what is right, like 1 + 1 = 2, you just know that. And you believe that and don't doubt it. Okay? Then that is the beginning of faith. That's the right belief. For example, in the Gospel of John, Christ was praying to the Father, and he said, as he was praying to the Father, he said, "And this is eternal life, that they know you, the one true God, and that they know that you sent me." See how important that is, to believe that, to believe those things. Now, how are you going to believe those? There's a true way and a false way. The true way of believing is to just know it in your heart, to just know it. You wake up one morning and you just realize that that's true. You just see it. Okay? But the other way, which is the false way, is to have somebody say it and then you believe it because they said it. Some expert said it, or you read it in a book. See? Or you heard it, and you emotionally, and then you try to emotionally believe it, to affirm it, to make affirmations and say it over and over again with emotion. But here's the problem with emotion. When you are emotional, you are actually living in doubt. See, when you're close to what you know in your heart, very close to it, then that's the proper state of being for a human being. But most of us are not, and then you flow from that. But most of us don't live that way. Very few people do. Most people are turned outwardly. They're turned outwardly, and they react to what's on the outside. They experience emotions. See, so here's what happens. Someone makes a basic appeal to your ego, either love or hate. Okay? Love or hate, either will work. That's the most basic appeal to your ego. If someone seems to love you, which they probably don't, or they're pretending to, then it makes you feel something. Okay? And you like it. If somebody hates you, which they may really hate you, or they may be just doing it to get you to react, then you also feel something negative. You feel hate toward them. If they love you, you feel love toward them. Okay? But what happens is when you have those emotions of love or hate, that opens you up to the outside. Okay? And then the outside pours in. And as you're opened up to the outside, you are turned to the outside. So you're turned away from the inner. Or someone says something and it appeals to your ego and you believe it. See? You believe it. For whatever reason, you believe what they say. Okay? You believe them. Well, that turns you away from a true belief into what you know in your heart. True belief is believing into what you know in your heart. And then standing back from what's on the outside and hearing what people say or reading what people write, but just kind of letting it go in one ear and out the other. See, you're not believing what they say, you're not disbelieving it, it goes in one ear and out the other. Okay? Now, if something on the outside happens to confirm what you know, see, in other words, you pick up a book or you hear somebody say something, and all of a sudden you see that what they're saying is true. See, all they're doing on the outside is bearing witness to what you already knew inwardly. Okay? So you have this internal light from God. And the proper way of existing, people like Noah, Enoch, Elijah, Abraham, that's the way they lived. They walked with God, or they were a friend of God. Paul, Christ, see? They walked with God. So that's the way you have to be. And the way to do that is just to trust what you know in your heart. See, you just sort of know. They say Einstein was that way, at least as far as his discoveries. How did he make those discoveries? I think God led him to those discoveries. But he made some wonderful discoveries. He didn't figure them out. He discovered them. They existed and he discovered them. Just like you discover that 2 + 2 = 4. When you're a little kid, you say, oh, I see. But when he made a new discovery, then a lot of people would be opposed to it. Or they would disagree with it or doubt it. But they said that he was unbudgeable. He was unbudgeable. He trusted what he knew in his heart. And then later, he was proved right. See, that's the way you need to be. But now do you see how, if you believe in any belief in anybody out in the world is misplaced belief. What happens when you believe in people anyway? Don't they usually end up betraying you? See? One way or another. They may not even mean to, but even if you put your belief in someone who's halfway decent, you end up finding out that they have feet of clay, or you find out they don't really know for sure themselves, or they're saying something that's not totally true. They're saying what they heard somebody say. So they were mouthing what somebody else said, and that person was mouthing what they heard. It turns out it's not true. Or there's some flaw in what they're saying that is harmful. And any faith put in anything on the outside, you put your faith in your retirement plan, in the government, in your church, in some leader. Put faith in your own cleverness. Put faith in some other person. See? It's misplaced faith. Faith should be reserved for your Creator and what He has you to know wordlessly within. And belief should be also reserved for your Creator. See, intuition, first, last, and always. That's the most important thing. That's given to you by God, your intuition, which feels like conscience when you stray from it. That's your closest link to God. It's present sight, foresight. It also gives you hindsight, where you can see how you could have done something a little better. If you could get your ego out of the way, see, and stop being so emotional, and just stand back from people. It doesn't mean you can't go out in the world and still do business and recreation and be with people and be married and have kids, and you can do all that stuff. But just not so close, not so emotional, not dependent, not so clingy, not leaning on others, not placing them as the basis for you or what you think or what you know. See, if someone says something on the outside that confirms what you already know, well, that's nice. And if they don't, it doesn't bother you. But now do you see how emotions? So once you become capable of being emotionalized, see, it's like a trauma. It's like you've been penetrated. See, now all of a sudden you know emotions. You're not the same anymore as you were before some incident. So now you know emotions. See? Like fear. Basically, we shouldn't know fear. See? We really shouldn't. Yeah, okay, if you're in the forest and all of a sudden here's a gigantic deer, or not a deer, a gigantic lion coming at you, well, okay, so, but even there, not fear, just alertness and then responding as best you can. Run, climb a tree, whatever, you just do what is necessary, but fear is not helpful. But little kids are fearful. So it's something unnatural. There's something not right about fear. We shouldn't know fear. How do you know fear? Because someone made you afraid when you were a little child. They slapped you around. They threatened you. See? Something like that. They accused you. See? So these emotions. What they do then, so what I was going to say is, so once you've been penetrated, once you start to become emotionalized, See, now you are separated from your inner ground of good. You're separated from it. And now all you can know is doubt. Now you doubt what you know in your heart. You doubt it. Because you're not connected to it. Now you're connected to the outside by way of emotions. So there you are. So we must have something to lean on. So when you're disconnected from the inside, then you have to lean on the outside. Lean on something out there. The very thing that upset you and disconnected you from within, made you feel emotions. See, is the very thing then often that you lean on. Look for support from. See? So then you start feeling emotions, and whenever you feel the emotions, they carry you even further away from a calm apprehension of the truth from within. So you become totally and more emotional and more sensitive. See? So getting better then has to do with, getting the little meditation that I have, learning to stand back from thoughts and stand back from emotions, all these things that came rushing in from the outside, okay, and getting closer to your intuition again. See? Now belief, if someone on the outside says something and you believe them, usually because there's a subtle ego appeal. They appeal to your pride, to your vanity, or they appeal to your greed or something you want. See, you want a happy home, you want popularity, you want fame, you want people to love you. See, whatever it is that you want, well, they make a subtle appeal to that, and then you kind of open up to them because of that appeal. See, and you believe what they say. Okay? Okay? And when you believe what they say, believing into them, see, belief is also very decisive. You either believe one way or you believe the other. See? You either believe in what you know in your heart or you believe in something on the outside. So when you believe into them, then they can begin. Remember what I said about emotions. So you start to feel emotions. So first you believe them or believe into them, then you start to have emotions, maybe and excitement or whatever. And then, now you see your sensitivity increases, your vulnerability, so now you become vulnerable to suggestions. And your physical sensitivity increases also, sensitivity to them, to people like them, and sensitivity in general, vulnerability in general. See? So they're actually stressing you, and their stress makes you more suggestible and more vulnerable. So there you are, through this stressor who's appealing to you and has turned you to believe in them, see? And then even perhaps to trust in them, to have emotions toward them. They've separated you from within. So now you don't have faith in, you don't have belief, you don't believe anymore into what you know in your heart, you believe into them. See, you believe either one way or the other. Like Christ said, no man can serve two masters. You can't ride two horses. It's one or the other. So most people that you see walking around, 99% of them, maybe higher, that's the way they live. They're totally externalized. And they are separated from within. Now they have a life of doubt. Real doubt. Doubt of what they know in their heart. Okay? And believing in, trusting in, having faith in things on the outside. Or whatever it is, even like I said, if you have faith, so-called faith in yourself, or faith in your cleverness, or your ability, or your strength, or something. See, it's misplaced. But anyway, but it's a compensation usually because people are so self-doubters. See, if you're not firmly anchored in what you know in your heart, then you're very malleable, very suggestible, very sensitive, and very unstable. And in your instability, you compensate. So you acquire a lot of knowledge or build up big muscles or something to impress other people, and then you use other people, the fact that you're better than them or smarter than them, or that you can make them doubt themselves and fool them. You use all of those things to give yourself a false sense of confidence in comparison to them, but it's not a true confidence. True confidence comes from knowing what's right, believing what's right, see, and acting on what's right. What could be more simple? Okay, so now you're getting the idea. So most people live a life of doubt. So now do you see how the spoken word and people on the outside who talk about religion and so forth, can you see how treacherous that can be? If they very cleverly talk about true things, see, and you believe them or believe into them, see, you're believing into them. You're not believing into what you know in your heart. Wordless word within, the inner light from God. Instead, you're believing into a person. But now, if they're turning you from what's within to believe them and their way, or to believe into them, then that can't be good. And there's something behind them. You're also believing into the source behind them that's moving them to speak in a clever way to impress you and to wow you and or seduce you into believing them, you see? So now you're believing into that source. So another thing happens, and that's that they get into you and that source gets into you. And then when it's in, see, it's a stress. They're a stressor. See, trying to separate you from what you know in your heart. That's what I'm trying to make you, see, that's the stress. On the outside, trying to separate you. And when they do, that stressor then gets within. Their identity gets inside of you. Their identity and whatever is behind them. See, that's motivating them. It gets inside of you, and then it stresses you from within. See? So, now you see how emotionalized things get in, separate you from your inner ground. So, I think I'll stop at this point. Now I want just a couple of quick Bible verses. See, if you believe into God, remember Christ's words. He said, eternal life. He said, they know you, the one true God, and know that you sent me. Okay? So when you believe into that, into God, within, somehow within the inner light, the inner word from God, when you believe into that, then you will just know things. Nobody will have to teach you. You'll just see it. See? You believe it. You breathe a sigh of relief. You don't have to study. You don't have to strain. You don't have to drum up emotions or make affirmations. You just see it and sigh relief. See? Now, a passage that's very appropriate to this is the one that you will read in, it's actually the book of Job. It's the one where God is talking to Job, and God is saying, basically, why are you questioning me? God said, can you do all these things? No, you can't. And for example, then he says, can you send forth lightning that as they go and say to you, here we are? No. Who can count the clouds or tip the water jars of heaven? All these things, he said, who can do, I do all these things. I make the stars and the planets and the clouds and the oceans and the fish. I make the lightning. I do all these things. But here's something very beautiful that he says, tucked in among these grand physical things that God makes happen. He says, who has put wisdom in the inner parts or given understanding to the mind? See, in other words, God does that. He puts wisdom in the inner parts. Who else can do that? No one. God does it. Okay? God puts wisdom in the inner parts and gives understanding to the mind. Okay? So now do you see what it means to be close to your inner ground of good, and to know something without even knowing how you know. See, God implants it. Now there's another passage which is also appropriate, and it's from Ezekiel, the prophet Ezekiel. And this is God speaking through Ezekiel. He says that I will put my spirit in you so that you will follow my decrees and be careful to obey my rules. The English Standard Version says, and I will put my spirit within you and cause you to walk in my statutes and be careful to obey my rules. So in other words, God puts his spirit within and then makes it possible for you to obey him. See? Now, undoubtedly, you can't obey. You know what's right, but you don't do it. Paul says the good that I would do, I don't do. And the wrong that I don't want to do, I do. See? So you know what's right, and yet you can't do it. Or you want to be patient, but you find yourself being impatient. You see what I mean? So what you need is for God to put his spirit within you and make it empower you so that you can obey, so that you can be patient, so that you can do what you should do. You see what I mean? When you're turned within, when you're turned to what you know in your heart, and you believe in it, and trust in it, and have faith in it, see? And don't doubt it, because you're turned toward it. You can't doubt it. See, once you have found that bond, see, then you're safe. Okay. And then, as you believe into it, then God breathes something of himself into you. See? And then he lets you to know things within. So you wake up one morning and you just see something, and you know it's true, and you don't even know how you knew. Well, somehow God put it within. See? Wordlessly. See? But now look at what happens when you're turned to the outside and you believe in people, believe in anything on the outside and have faith in anything on the outside. Then not only are you turned to it, but it also puts something in you. See? It puts something in you. See? It gets into you. So it's a process what do we call that? We call that corruption. Okay. So I think I've said enough. I think now I've given you plenty of food for thought, and I hope you enjoyed this little video. My name is Roland.